It looks as though it's shelter and home until the end of April for those of us living here in the United States. And I'm sure that there are similar regulations wherever you are in this world. This brings up a very important question, and that is, how do we transition from going to a job, an office, or a workplace, or going to school with classmates, to working at home or going to school at home? And what about those people who are out of work altogether because they've been laid off during this crisis? The Bible is a most remarkable book. It's been translated in more languages and distributed more widely than any book ever before. Far more. There's not even one that comes close to the Bible. And so people have recognized down through the ages that there's great wisdom in this book. And one of those books within the Bible is called Proverbs, and I'd like to read a couple of them to you at this time. And they involve being diligent. The first one is Proverbs 10, verses 4 and 5. He who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame. Being diligent is very important. It's a characteristic, a quality, a point of character that we can develop. In Proverbs 12 and verse 24, it says, the hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy man will be put to forced labor. Now, as we transition from going to work or going to school to having our work at home, our schooling at home, we can be diligent or we can become lazy and we can waste a lot of time. So I have 3 points I'd like to give to you at this time, 3 things to think about, and perhaps you would put these into practice in your life. The first one is get up at the same time. Don't just sleep in and lay around, but get up at the same time. And along with that, carry on a regular schedule for work or school. Keep a regular time when you start your work, when you take your breaks for lunch or a 15-minute break here and there, whatever it is that you would normally do, but keep a regular schedule and stay with that schedule. And the third point is have a set location. Have a place where you work or do your school, where when you sit down, you know this is the place I'm going to go to work or I'm going to do my schoolwork. And stick with it. Get up at the same time, carry on a regular schedule for work or school, and have a set location. And even if you're out of work, these points still apply. You can sit back and wait for the government to take care of you, or you can use that time and that schedule to figure out how best can I provide for myself and for my family. What can I do? Can I just sit back here and wait for the government? Or maybe I can put the mind that God gave me to work to figure out something better in life. You know, sometimes it is during a crisis, during the loss of a job, when somebody comes up with the greatest idea they've ever had. And they put it into action, they become very successful at whatever it is. But there's a way that you can use that time. Don't just waste it, and don't just allow the government to take care of you. Put the mind that God gave you to work during this time. I'd like to, before I close, I'd like to read a couple of comments because we have a comment section and we encourage you to make comments or ask questions. And the first one is a comment from Camiology, and he or she writes, I'm done eating pork from this very moment. Well, good for you. This person must have watched the program or the little update I had showing that many of these flus and viruses come from Asia, where they eat a lot of unclean animals, animals that God said to leave alone. And when we look at the crisis that we're going through, this is no small regulation that God has given us. God knew what he was talking about when he gave us these laws of clean and unclean meats. The second one is from Josie, and she writes, can you please put a link to that article that's being referenced so that I can read it? I believe it, but I would like to send it to others. Thanks. Well, Josie, I'm not sure exactly which article was being referenced here, but we're going to send you a reference to one of them, and we think this is the one that you were asking about. Perhaps this is the one, quoting from a virologist, Michael Lay, who said the fact that both SARS and most flu viruses originated in southern China is no surprise, says virologist Michael Lay, who believes that the region's social customs of catching and eating wild game expose people to animal viruses. And when he's talking about wild game, he's not talking about cattle or deer or clean animals as we understand them, but he's talking about these exotic animals such as the civet cat and bats, which they use in traditional Chinese medicine, and they eat them, and rats and cats and all kinds of things, snakes, python snakes, all these creatures that God never intended for man to eat. And he recognized that it's the social customs there that create all these viruses that go around, these flu viruses that go around every year. This article was written in 2003 in Popular Science, and it was at the beginning of the SARS crisis. And so it's a little bit dated, and it didn't have all the information that has come out since then. But now they do believe that SARS was a result of bats, people eating bats, and perhaps it translating into another animal or another creature. They first thought it was a civet cat, an unclean creature. They don't believe that's the chain of events at this time, but nevertheless, it was very much involved with the whole SARS epidemic. He goes on to say that a pig, for example, can serve as a genetic mixing bowl when co-infected with two viruses, allowing them to swap genes. And other sources describe the pig as a genetic mixing bowl. It's so integral to so many of these diseases that go about. Josie, we'll send you that link to that article, and if that's not the one, then maybe you can describe a little bit more and we'll try to help you out. But if you have any questions or if you have any comments, be sure to record them and we'll try to answer your questions. This is Gerald Weston for Tomorrow's World and Living Church of God. Have a great day.